Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. What I plan to do today is basically run through kind of the key takeaways from Glassdoor's recent publication, which is Recruitment Marketing for Dummies. And in order to walk you through all of that, I will hit on a quick agenda. So we're going to go over 10 ways to win with recruitment marketing, how to create a recruitment marketing strategy that really works for you and your organization depending on size and reach, understanding which metrics to track, how to share those results with the right audience, and how to take advantage of social media. So I want to start out with what is recruitment marketing, right? It includes all organization communications that help you attract top talent for your workforce. And some of the major tools that you have, everything that plays into your recruitment marketing. So what do you have for that? You have your career website, things like blogs, job postings, photos, videos, social media, events, emails, of course, that go out, and your talent community. And finally, display advertising. So these are all of the elements that can share something about your employer brand, or another way to say it is everywhere that your employer brand exists. So, 10 ways to win with recruitment marketing. The first one is to create a unique, strong, and authentic brand. And what I mean by this is cut the marketing speak. You want to have a brand that really resonates with people and says something real about who you actually are. And a great way to put this is something Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, once said, which is your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Your brand is not something that you create in an office with executives. Your brand is a living, breathing thing that everyone has an opinion about and something to say about. And it's your job to harness all of that and create a message that really resonates with people and makes sense. So on this slide, I have some questions that you should ask yourself when you're kind of assessing your brand and what you want to say about it. So the first question is, would current employees recommend your organization to a friend? What are job seekers saying about you on social? And finally, what is your company rating on Glassdoor? So the way I want you to think about this is that, like I said on the last slide, gone are the days of internally developing the message and putting it up there for all to see. If your message is saying one thing and employees are saying another, your credibility simply goes out the window. So these are some questions to ask yourself so that you're constantly monitoring what's being said about you and developing messages that resonate with what's already happening. So this is kind of why reputation is so important, right? We did a little survey to find that 69% of Glassdoor members agree their perception of a company improves after seeing an employer respond to a review. And 84% would consider leaving their current jobs if offered another role with a company that had an excellent corporate reputation. And these people, as you can see, they only require a 1 to 10% salary increase to consider such a move. So really what we're dealing with here is actual numbers that tell you how important your brand is to other people. These are the people making decisions about whether or not they want to work for you, and more than half of them, almost all of them in some cases, care deeply about what your brand is saying, or in other words, what other people are saying about you when you're not in the room. And like the thing I want you to take away from this slide too is that remember that no company is perfect in this process. We all have things at any given moment that we're working on that aren't perfect yet, and employer branding isn't this set it and forget it strategy of these are the things we're great with and that's it. It's employer branding in today's day and age is being involved in the process and the conversation along the way. All right, so I want to give you top 5 pieces of information that job seekers want employers to provide as they search for where to work. And this is based on a Glassdoor survey we did. The first one is details on what makes the company an attractive place to work. That was the #1 thing people said. From there, they want details on compensation, naturally, and benefits packages. They want to know about the company mission, vision, and values because that plays into so much of how your day-to-day is experienced. and then, of course, basic company information. Now, people are really hungry for this stuff. So if this isn't all over your career site, if this isn't something that's resonating in your social messages and kind of across the web, people will seek it out elsewhere. And a lot of them are coming to Glassdoor to get this information. So make sure that you are making the things that people want to hear most as accessible to them as possible to set yourself up for recruiting success. All right, so here I want to give you a little checklist, which will kind of give you a sense of how your employer brand is performing. So a poor employer brand includes things like low brand awareness. People don't really know about your brand or what you're about. You're having problems keeping people, and maybe you have an attrition issue you need to address. People aren't accepting offers, low productivity, things that are sort of red flags or indicators that maybe your brand needs some work. So if any of these resonate with you, it's time to think about ways to fix them, which is probably why you're here. So we're going to talk about all of that. And then as you compare this list to a strong employer brand, you see things like retention, more job offers accepted, your revenue goes up, you have more quality applicants. So if you're tracking things like this, you'll be able to quickly and easily assess how your brand is actually doing. So my next tip on this maps exactly back to this, and that is to train internal brand ambassadors. This is an employee-centric approach that puts your people first. And when it comes to thinking about your brand ambassadors, the more you include your employees to be part of developing your company's message, the more likely they can help you promote that message to their friends and networks. So we actually found that 72% of employees with socially encouraging employers, or said another way, employers that ask them to share on social what it's like to work at their companies, 72% of employees with employers like that are significantly more likely to help boost sales, actual sales, so hitting that bottom line, compared to only 48% of employees who employers are not encouraging them to post on social. And that's a really strong stat, right? Because it maps back to the idea that if you are encouraging your employees to bring their whole selves to work, to share what it's really like across social channels, and essentially telling employees, hey, you have a voice, a unique voice, and we care about it and we want to hear it, that makes employees feel so good about their job, they're more likely to contribute to your overall revenue and sales. That's huge. All right, so make sure that you're understanding your employee sentiment. And this is actually a snapshot from something you can gain access to in what we call the Glassdoor Employer Center. So this kind of gives you a sense here of how different departments and locations feel about your organization. And you can filter this out any way you want to see where your numbers are higher and lower to kind of assess, okay, here's where we may have problems, here's where things are looking a little bit brighter. And so I want to give you another checklist here of 5 ways to develop brand ambassadors. The first one is naturally to encourage them to be brand ambassadors, encourage their voice, and tell them that you want to hear from them. Communicate the importance of why you want to hear from them, and incent them when you can, train them, and make it as easy as possible. I'll give you an example of a company that does this well. VMware runs a social campaign to encourage employees to share what it's like to work there. They call it the, quote, corporate crush campaign. And I love this because all they do is encourage people to post on social using the hashtag #ILoveVMware. And they share great things about the company, they share what they love, and it's unique stories. People like different things about VMware, and they get a ton of traction out of it. They did another one called the What's Next campaign, where VMware simply gave out mugs with inspiring quotes, and employees posted pictures of those and told their stories about what was next for them. And as you're looking at this and thinking about ways to do this at your own company, just remember that whatever your story is, your unique story is better than some stock photo that doesn't tell anyone anything. All right, the next one is let employees be who they are. This is a real picture from Glassdoor. It's actually our fabulous SDR team. They were working to win a selfie stick by taking the ultimate selfie. And you can see that they've all made it into the frame here. And this was just such a funny thing they wanted to do and post this photo on the internet. And it's real and it's creative and it's authentic to exactly who we are. So to let employees be who they are, remember to encourage photos and videos, show the real you, and let employees truly be themselves. All right, so number 3 is track key performance indicators. Now, what do I mean by this? When we were putting together Recruitment Marketing for Dummies, we wanted to make the connection between the realms of recruiting and marketing. So we asked ourselves, what do we take from our marketing department and apply to our recruiting team? And we thought of the KPIs we looked at and iterate on over time. In our marketing department, that includes things like how many unique users are researching us, how much time is spent on site, and what encourages people to become more engaged with our business. And also when they open the email, what are the click ratios like? Same goes for your recruiting department. You need to look at the quality of your users or visitors, the clicks, and also the content that's compelling for them to decide quickly, I want to work for this company. All right, so key marketing campaign channel analytics. This is a snapshot of different metrics to look at by channel, and there can be overlap. The real ones to call out here are social, because these can be great for awareness, but at times harder to measure. Things like conversion and cost per hire metrics. At Glassdoor, we look at our reach and our engagement and top campaigns by clicks. I also want to point out on Glassdoor, you can actually see how many people at your organization would recommend you to a friend, or rather what percentage. And this can be a great indicator for you if your referral program needs work, because if you're getting low recommend to a friend numbers, it's not the right time to start some kind of brand ambassador campaign. You have to address why it's not working internally and then go forth with that campaign. So as you can see, kind of what I'm getting at here with all of these slides is map back to the numbers, find a way to measure it before you make a decision about what to do next. Which leads me to my next slide, which is share results with stakeholders. Now, what do I mean by this? So once you've established the KPIs for every area you're going to analyze, it's important to assign owners to report to upper management on each one. So each area requires a different set of tools and steps to success. So what I'm trying to say is having experts in each category up here that you see can really help you grow and scale your recruitment marketing programs over time and get buy-in from more budget. And something that you'll notice if you download our Dummies book is that we created a workbook to think about all of the tasks you have in each of these areas. And so that's a good thing to download and keep in mind as you organize presentations and analysis that you need from each of these teams going forward. All right, so number 5 is simplify the message. And what you see here is a simple slide with a simple message. It should be easy to apply to your company. So make sure that the application process is simple. Make sure you ask questions that directly relate back to exactly what you want to know about the candidate. So qualifying questions are fine, but really get at the nitty-gritty. Can you do this job? Here's what I want to know. Make sure your layout is very user-friendly. This should be click, click, apply. Your content is branded and interesting. If they feel like they're filling out a form that they don't understand, that they're not sure what the company voice is, that can be confusing. And finally, make sure any relevant social links are there so that applicants can become part of your talent community. This is a really important element as you're trying to grow kind of a fan base for your organization. These are the kinds of folks who will follow you on your employer-focused social channels. All right, so number 6 here is monitor the competition. And I have some kind of qualifying questions that you can ask when you're thinking about how to monitor the competition. Are your competitors posting jobs in the same places that you're posting jobs? And what roles are they trying to fill? Are you competing for the exact same people? Do they have a social presence? And if so, what do they post on social? And then because in today's day and age, your employer brand is so public-facing, you can really get a sense of what their strengths and weaknesses are based on what they're sharing and what's available on Glassdoor. So let's dig into this a little bit more. When you analyze your traffic compared to competitors on Glassdoor, you can come away with some really fascinating insights. So if you log into Glassdoor with your free employer account and simply look at the demographics visiting your page, you can insert competitors you'd like to compare that to and come away with some really interesting results. So this is a great way to say, what campaigns could we run that no one else is running? If, for example, females in tech are of interest to you, Glassdoor has this display campaign that you could run to simply target that audience. Or maybe it's a unique event that you could run with a female CTO speaking, or a blog post from a top female engineer. So you get the idea here. You see what's working and what isn't, and once you develop personas for who you're trying to attract by department, you can develop really unique messaging for that audience. All right, so see where your competitor is investing. This is actually a really cool tool that I'm excited to share with you. So you can simply visit your competitor's profile on Glassdoor to gain some really helpful intelligence about their recruiting budgets. So you just click on the Interviews tab, and this is all public-facing information, and you see where people got the interview. And this will give you some pretty decent insight into how much your competitors are spending on recruiters versus staffing agencies versus in-person things like campus recruiting or online advertisements. All right, so tip number 7 is respond to every candidate. The important thing to remember here, much how recruiting is bleeding into marketing, is that you should treat every candidate just like a customer. And this isn't just for word of mouth, it's for word of internet, which is far more quickly spreading. So be sure that you're checking your interview reviews on Glassdoor. That's a good first step to find out how you're doing. And make sure you're putting the best foot forward with your candidates. So close the loop and respond to candidates each and every time, even if you're not interested. And as we know, leaving people hanging makes you look like a jerk. But being honest, even when it's hard and you don't really have any good news for them, it's still a good integrity move that will help your reputation in the long run. And beyond your reputation, it's just the right thing to do. If someone doesn't know where they stand with you, having the courage to tell them and be honest and authentic with them, it's great for your brand, but it also just makes you a better company with more integrity. Okay, so something I want to point out actually is that on Glassdoor, you can filter through interview reviews and see which candidates declined the job offer. And this is hugely important for assessment. So you can note any holes in your interview process, figure out what's working and what isn't, and read the reviews of those who were offered a job by you and declined. That's gold for understanding what's working and what isn't in your interview process. And this is actually really important. We did a survey of our own users, and we found 61%, so more than half of employees say new job realities differ from expectations set during the interview process. So that means a lot of people are having some kind of buyer's remorse after they take a new job, and you don't want that because that leads to, as we know, attrition. But it's not the end of the world if there's one bad review. We find that most job seekers read 4 to 7 reviews before even forming an opinion of a company. But when they're reading those reviews, they're only getting insight from the person who left the review, right? So something that you can do that greatly increases your brand perception is to respond to those reviews and join the conversation. This is an opportunity for you to compliment the good and appreciate the bad, or if you can't appreciate it, at least say what you're doing to change it. And this really shows candidates that you value and are receptive to candidate feedback and employee feedback. All right, so number 8 might seem simple, but I'm going to say it anyway. Create a marketing calendar. What do I mean by this? You should have everything in this marketing calendar, including hiring dates and onboarding classes, recruiting events, big themes and hiring initiatives, and job advertising start and end dates. This level of organization will just showcase your recruiting department much like your marketing department and allow you guys to speak the same languages so you can be more in sync. All right, number 9 is run a referral program. And this is actually a very important one because this can allow you to increase candidate quality. We find that employee referrals are the #1 source for quality new hires, and referral candidates are 5 times more likely to get hired than other candidates. So if you're putting budget or at least energy towards having a functioning referral program at your organization, you're saving yourself time and money because you're increasing the quality of your candidates that you actually get and cutting out the riffraff that you have to filter through when you're looking at resume after resume. All right, so number 10 is use social media at every step. And I can't emphasize this enough in the world we're living in today. Two of the top channels most used for employer brand promotion are a company website and social media. This is just simply where the candidates are. So according to Glassdoor research, the most trusted resources for learning about companies are family and friends by 52% of respondents, followed by feedback and reviews from other people who work at that company. The least trusted resource, this is interesting, actually ends up being a company recruiter or the company's own website. So just know that when you're putting that stuff on your website, on your careers page, that's a great place to showcase your available jobs, showcase your company, and all of that. You shouldn't stop doing that. But what you should do is make sure that you're also on social, because this is where people are going to get the more authentic look at what you're really like. So 79% are likely to use social media in their job search. I think that lines up with what we just said. And 86% of those people in the first 10 years of their career are likely to use social media in their job search. So what I'm saying here is it's increasing. People are using it a lot today, and they're going to use it even more tomorrow. So if you're not on social yet, or you don't feel like you're good at social yet, that's okay. But if you don't hop on it now, you're going to miss a huge boat. So get on it today and figure out what you need to do to be as social as possible. You're not the only one if you're having trouble with social media. We found that nearly 2 in 3 say their employer does not or know how to use social media to promote job openings. And another 3 in 4 say their employer does not or know how to promote their employer brand on social. So there's an opportunity for you to jump on this and begin to understand it. And I know social media is overwhelming, right? Like, this is a lot to learn. But I want to give you one solid tip that should help you in your social media endeavors, and that's hashtags. So what better example to use than Twitter itself? This is the Twitter channel Join the Flock. And what Twitter has done really successfully is engage its employees and encourage its employees to use the hashtag Join the Flock. So this doesn't have anything to do with product. It doesn't have anything to do with marketing or sales or any other endeavors. This is simply about recruiting. And employees know when they use this hashtag, they are using it for recruiting. And this creates this conversation that's constantly moving and flowing and living and breathing, and people can contribute to it and have side conversations about it. And that gives Twitter a really excellent way to track how its brand is doing in real time. So I definitely encourage you to come up with a hashtag that really speaks to your own organization and sort of lets people know what you're about and something that is evergreen that they can continue talking about for a long time. So for more tips on how to do things like this, I encourage you to download Employer Branding for Dummies and Recruitment Marketing for Dummies. And I'll leave you with one more thing, which is that I highly suggest you sign up for a free employer account on Glassdoor. Just try it out and see what you think of the analytics and how those analytics can help you track what's working and what isn't with your employer brand and identify ways for you to improve. So with that, I will kick it back over to see if we got any questions along the way.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Lisa. I think you gave us a lot of great actionable tips and some useful things that we can do to get back to basics on that employer brand and recruitment marketing strategies. So I want to thank you for your expertise in that respect. We have had a few questions come in over the course of the webcast, so I do want to get to as many of those as we can in the time that we have remaining. HCI members, if you haven't yet submitted any questions, I encourage everyone to do so now. You can do that in a couple ways. One of them is to tweet questions with the hashtag HCI chat, or you can simply enter those questions into the chat box. Underneath the webcast player, just remember to include your name in parentheses, so that would be helpful for us to know who we are speaking with. So let me go ahead and get right to our first question here, Lisa. Does Glassdoor have a social media policy for its employees, and can you tell us a little more about that if they do?
Well, I would say the policy there is more please. So, if you're talking about a social media policy around things like don't go on Facebook during working hours, no, we would never have anything like that. Our policy has always been, as a company who is very comfortable in a transparent space, share what it's like and share it on as many platforms as possible. So we actually encourage employees to follow at Inside Glassdoor to get a inside look at what Glassdoor is really like day in and day out. And we have employees sharing stuff on that channel all the time. That's our Facebook channel and Twitter channel for all of our recruiting purposes and our kind of HR and people operations purposes. So our perspective is, if it's interesting and it pertains to Glassdoor and something you like about working here, share it and share it to your heart's desire.
Great. I love that policy. Our next question here is, you mentioned several times, the importance of reviews and responding to those reviews. In your opinion, how often should an organization be checking for new reviews? How often should they be responding? And, for companies who are maybe just starting to get into this and really start to leverage Glassdoor, is it worth responding to reviews that, are over a year old?
I think it depends on a couple different factors. One is timing and bandwidth and how much you have to really devote to this and how much volume you're actually getting. But come up with a cadence that works for you in terms of timing. And when it comes to the kinds of reviews to respond to or when they came in, I think a good rule of thumb is to respond when you have something to say. And I did another webinar on this recently where I talked about how exactly to respond to reviews. And when you're coming from the employer voice, it's important to keep the tone of your organization in mind. So if someone says something you don't like, that's an opportunity to say, thank you, I'd love to hear more about that. Or if someone says something that was a complaint about your company, let's say a year ago, and it's something that you've fixed, that's an amazing opportunity for you to go in and say, thank you so much for your feedback. We heard from other people about this and we decided to make a change. So now X, Y, and Z are different. That's a great branding opportunity. And so what if the review is a year old? You've just updated it this year with more information. So if a potential candidate is reading that, they have so much more that they now understand.
Excellent. Thank you. This is an interesting question from Naomi. She asks, when you have a company that's part of a subsidiary, how do you try to establish branding when the parent company is not quite up to date yet?
That's a great question. I think that it is really important, as we've said in this presentation and I've said elsewhere, it's important to sync with your communications team on something like that. Like a recruiting department might be saying something different than a communications team is saying, and it's important for you all to get on the same page. Are we recruiting for this subsidiary or are we recruiting for this larger version of the company? And if you're a Glassdoor customer, you can work with your CSM to make sure that you have those unique voices represented on your actual company profile on Glassdoor, but you should also decide with your communications department if you want to make those voices separate, and if so, how so that your kind of corporate handles and corporate social presence maps back to what you're doing at the subsidiary.
Great, and you also talked a lot towards the end about social media, and there are a million different avenues out there. For an organization that's, not really social media savvy, which platforms should they encourage employees to utilize? Is Facebook still the go-to, or are there some other ones that we should be exploring?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you do as an organization and who you're trying to attract. So demographics are a little bit different in terms of who's using Twitter versus who's using Instagram or Facebook or even LinkedIn. So I would look to those channels to see really who's operating there. But I would also encourage your employees to operate in the platforms that they feel most comfortable, because perhaps your communications department is focused on Twitter, but you have an employee who just got hired out of college who's just killing it on Snapchat. They can really be a brand ambassador for you to kind of share your message there. And the other thing I'd say on this topic is that a lot of times you see organizations where the communications department is focused on some channels and the recruiting team or the recruitment marketing team really wants to have a voice there, but the channels are already full of other corporate messages or sales messages or other information. So a offering that we have on Glassdoor now is something we're calling Company Updates, which is a platform specifically for a recruiting department to share employment-specific messages with the folks actually researching companies for the purpose of interviewing there or becoming an employee there. So that's something that a recruiting department could definitely take and say, you guys are running Twitter over in marketing, but we're going to run the Glassdoor channel because it pertains directly to employment.
That's a great perspective. Thank you. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. Naomi had a follow-up question on, working for a subsidiary of a larger company. And her follow-up question is this something that you feel you should wait for a marketing department to do? Or, being a part of that smaller group, can you really move forward to the best of your ability? Or what do you do in that situation to avoid mixed messaging?
Naomi, that's a good one. Every organization is different. I don't know where you're based or what your company does, but here in the Bay Area, we work with a lot of startups at various stages, and our motto, and many of the companies we work with have similar mottos of move fast, break things, be courageous, and try new things. So I think, it depends on your organization, but I would encourage you to try it and kind of dip your toe in and see what's working. And if it works, that gives you proof points to share with the leaders at your organization to say we should be doing more of this.
Thank you. I think that is a great way to handle that. We have another question here from Shireen. Shireen asks, some of our executive leaders have been hesitant to use social media because they're afraid that personal profiles could end up reflecting poorly on our company brand. How do you get them to buy in despite that risk?
Today we're in a very socially connected world. It's no secret that people have Facebook profiles. It's sort of expected that your CEO is a human being who has maybe kids and a family or maybe a dog. And, we're sort of past this point in time where an organization is this super buttoned up professional place where only marketing messages that have been reviewed by 500 people are public messages. We're simply living in a world where conversations are happening more casually across many different platforms at many different levels of professionalism. So I would encourage senior leaders to sort of take their heads out of the sand on that one and see that, CEOs are posting about their vacations. They're posting about what they like to do after work. And that can create a brand presence that is a lot more authentic and a lot more relevant in today's environment where people have access to more information. And if you're not putting it on your Twitter, there are chances they can find it somewhere else. So own your entire brand and make it part of your business to give your company more of a personality.
Thank you. That's an interesting response. I think it's definitely useful to remember that, social media invades nearly every aspect of our lives, and our work lives are no different. So I think you offered some good perspectives to share there with our leadership teams. It looks like we have actually come to the end of our material for the afternoon. So I do want to thank you, Lisa, for sharing your expertise and being with us here this afternoon to talk to us about recruitment marketing. If anyone wants to learn more, they can head over to the Glassdoor website and download that ebook, Recruitment Marketing for Dummies. That's available there on that website, and the link is in the chat box that I posted a little bit earlier. You can scroll up and find that there. If you do want to learn a little bit more about talent acquisition, you can scroll up to the top of the page and click Attend a Conference and see some more information on talent acquisition innovation. And lastly, again, one more thank you to Lisa for being here as our speaker today, and also thank you to everyone at Glassdoor for making this webcast possible. And of course, thank you to all of our HCI members. We look forward to seeing you again on another webcast soon. Have a great afternoon.